"Mom, about that guy you wanted to set me up with, I'll do it." The moment the words left Willow Ashwood's mouth, the tightness in her chest finally loosened. Hearing that her daughter was no longer fixated on Julian Sterling, Martha Ashwood's tone softened. "Willow, I'm so glad you've come to your senses. The Sterlings aren't for ordinary people like us. Besides," catching her slip, Mrs. Ashwood quickly changed the subject. "The man I'm introducing you to isn't like Julian, but he's handsome and charming. A great match for you." Willow knew her mother was just trying to comfort her, but after being Julian Sterling's little lapdog for 9 years, she still felt a pang of disappointment. "Okay, 1 month left." Just as she spoke, a male voice came from behind her. "What's in 1 month?" Willow frantically hung up the phone. She turned to see Julian Sterling leaning against the doorframe, a playful smirk on his face. He'd appeared without a sound. Willow answered calmly, "Your birthday is in 1 month?" Julian scoffed. "I thought you were going to say that in 1 month you'd finally stop clinging to me." He stepped closer. "What's this? Realize that being clingy doesn't work, so now you're playing hard to get?" Willow just hummed in response. When she first arrived, Julian had been thrilled to have a little girl to play with. Every day after finishing his homework, he'd help her and her mother with their chores. But after that incident, his attitude did a complete 180. When he was in a good mood, he'd tease her for a while, enjoying the sight of her lighting up because of him before dousing her with a bucket of cold water. When he was in a bad mood, he wouldn't even spare her a glance. She had gotten used to it long ago. Seeing that Willow wasn't flustered like she used to be, Julian found it a bit dull. Before leaving, he didn't forget to turn back and warn her. "Willow Ashwood, I'm pulling an all-nighter with my friends tonight. Don't call me, and don't you dare come looking for me." Willow lowered her eyes, remembering the last time she desperately tagged along to one of his parties, only to watch him grinding on the dance floor with Victoria Cromwell. Amidst the deafening music, her head had spun, and her heart had ached so much she couldn't breathe. In high school, Victoria, looking down on Willow as the help's daughter, had led the other girls in bullying her. That was until Julian transferred to their school. He had stood in front of Willow, becoming her savior. But now, even though Julian knew perfectly well the pain Victoria had caused her, he could still party with her without a care in the world. It was on that day that Willow suddenly had an epiphany. This widely known, one-sided crush had to end. Seeing Willow's silence, Julian's face darkened. "Did you hear me, Willow Ashwood? If you dare disturb me, you can pack your bags and get out." It was his go-to threat. Whenever he said it, no matter how unwilling she was, she'd always agree with red-rimmed eyes. "I know," Willow said, her body trembling slightly as she replied out of habit. Julian had a nagging feeling that Willow was being abnormally obedient today. But then he pictured her clinging to his leg, crying and begging him not to make her leave, and he relaxed. Of course. The thing Willow Ashwood feared most was leaving him. His friend's calls kept buzzing on his phone. Not giving it another thought, Julian hummed a little tune and turned to leave. The heavy front door slammed shut, and the entire mansion fell silent once more. Willow looked at the stuffed rabbit in her hands. After a moment's thought, she decided not to put it in her suitcase. On her 18th birthday, her mom had forgotten to buy her a gift. By the time she remembered, the stuffed rabbit Willow had wanted for ages had already been sold. Not wanting to trouble her mother, Willow had hidden under the covers and cried herself to sleep. When Julian found out, he scoured the entire city for an identical one, only to discover it was a discontinued model. So he specially commissioned an artisan to create a unique rabbit, one that belonged only to Willow. "Willow, I'll always be with you. I'll never let you be wronged," the young boy had said, presenting the stuffed rabbit to her. Later, when Victoria Cromwell found out, she furiously snatched the rabbit from Willow's hands and tore it to shreds. Willow hadn't cried when she was disciplined for the fight, but the moment she saw the ripped rabbit, the tears came. That day, Willow had been like a ferocious little beast, crying as she pinned Victoria to the ground and hit her. When Julian rushed over, he held her in his arms and comforted her. "Don't cry, Willow. The little rabbit will be good as new tomorrow." The next day, the stuffed rabbit was indeed perfectly restored. Willow jumped for joy. Seeing her happy smile, Julian couldn't help but pinch her chubby little cheeks. His hands, covered in scratches and bandages, stung a little, but to Willow, nothing had ever felt more gentle. But that sweetness came to an abrupt end on the day Julian's father died. Mr. Sterling died in his study. Willow's mother, Martha Ashwood, was blamed for his death and ruthlessly thrown out of the house. Staring at their luggage scattered outside the gate, Willow cried and tried to explain to Julian, hoping he would believe in her and her mom. But all she saw in return was a hateful glare and a face full of disgust. "Willow Ashwood, your mom took the Sterling's money but didn't do her job, and now my dad is dead. How dare you ask me to forgive her? If it weren't for my mother insisting on keeping you, you'd be out on the street with that mother of yours right now." He finally deigned to look at her. "But don't get cocky. One day, I'll make you leave on your own." Julian Sterling was a man of his word. At school, he publicly declared that Willow Ashwood was the person he despised most. He let Victoria Cromwell bully her and ignored her cries for help. Willow's life plunged back into darkness. Every night, as she cried herself to sleep, she would clutch the stuffed rabbit, telling herself that the gentle Julian would come back tomorrow. Day after day, she lied to herself. But today, she decided to let it go, and to let go of her own battered self. The next day, for the first time in ages, Willow slept until noon. She was just about to get up when the bedroom door was violently thrown open. Julian stood there, his face a mask of fury. "You knew I wasn't home last night, and you didn't think to prepare any food for me. My mother let you stay so you could take care of me. You're really making yourself at home, aren't you?" The way he spoke was a carbon copy of how the Sterling family elders used to scold her mother. Willow gave a self-deprecating smile. In Julian's mind, she had always been nothing more than the housekeeper's daughter. And yet, just because his mother, Elinor Sterling, was fond of her, she had harbored such unrealistic fantasies. How pathetically overconfident she had been. Willow looked up at the man she had loved for 9 years. "I'm sorry, sir. I overslept. I'll go make you something right away." "Sir?" Julian was thrown by her sudden formality. Then he figured it must be another one of her new tricks to get his attention. Whatever. Let her play her games. When Julian came out of the shower, breakfast was already on the table. His stomach was growling with hunger. He grabbed a sandwich and started eating ravenously. His eyes fell on his dead phone. He remembered Victoria's teasing words from last night when she saw him arrive alone. "Where's your little tail today?" "Julian, you're really losing your touch. You're letting a housekeeper's daughter wrap you around her little finger." At the time, Julian had smirked coldly, placing his phone on the table in front of everyone and boasting that even if Willow called him 100 times, he wouldn't glance at it once. But until the morning, not a single message had come from her. Julian's chewing slowed. "Why didn't you call me to come home last night?" Willow looked up in surprise. Julian had always hated her chattering, lecturing her to be silent while eating and sleeping. Now he was actually making small talk with her during a meal. "You told me not to disturb you before you left." After 9 years, this was the first time Willow felt she couldn't understand Julian at all. He was the one who had repeatedly told her not to call him, not to follow him around anymore. Now that she was obediently doing exactly as he said, he was turning around and asking her why she wasn't clinging to him. Maybe it was just a habit for him. Willow resolved not to entertain any more of those absurd ideas. After Julian left, Willow went online to look for a part-time job again. She didn't want to spend this last month foolishly waiting for him to come home every day like she used to. She also had to pay him back in cash for all the years of rent. Only then would they truly be even. Soon, Willow found a tutoring position. 2 hours of tutoring at the student's home every evening. In half a month, she could earn $10,000. That, plus the money she had saved from part-time jobs over the years, would be enough to cover the rent. Just as Willow was about to head out, Julian came downstairs and called out to her. "Where are you going?" "I found a part-time job. I'll be late if I don't leave now." Julian leaned over the staircase railing, watching her with amusement. He teased, "Are you that desperate for money?" "My mother pays you to take care of me and keep an eye on me, doesn't she?" "Oh, I get it. My birthday's coming up. You're working so hard because you want to buy me a present, right?" Yes, Willow thought silently. A parting gift. Julian, oblivious to her inner thoughts, continued to tease her with a light laugh. "Just a heads up, don't try that TV drama cliché where you wrap yourself up in a gift box for me. I have no intention of marrying you." In the past, for every one of Julian's birthdays, Willow would go to extraordinary lengths, tapping into every possible source to find out what he was currently into. Perhaps because they all enjoyed seeing her make a fool of herself, Julian's friends would always come up with bizarre ideas to prank her. For his 19th birthday, they told Willow that Julian loved novel things, especially tea brewed with morning dew. Willow believed them. She went up a mountain the night before and pitched a tent, getting bitten all over by mosquitoes. But all she got in return was Julian pouring the morning dew she had painstakingly collected down the toilet. Willow Ashwood, I find unpurified water disgusting. For his 20th birthday, they told her Julian was obsessed with Rolexes. She took on 3 part-time jobs and borrowed money from classmates to finally buy the model she thought suited him perfectly. It was the most expensive watch she could possibly afford, but he just glanced at it before contemptuously sweeping it off the table. Only you would treasure a common model like this. What I like are limited editions. Things like this happened every year, but this year's gift would surely be the one Julian wanted most. Don't worry, she said. I won't do anything foolish again. With that, Willow closed the door and left, leaving Julian with nothing but the sight of her resolute back. After 2 subway transfers, Willow arrived at the student's home. Following a 2-hour trial lesson, she successfully signed a half-month contract with the parents. Who would have thought that, as she was saying her goodbyes, she would run into the one person she never wanted to see again? Victoria Cromwell. She looked Willow up and down, the disdain in her eyes unconcealed. So you're my sister's new tutor. Willow Ashwood, even after living in a mansion with Julian for a few years, you still reek of that unbearable riffraff. To think the job she'd applied for was tutoring Victoria's sister. Willow instantly wanted to quit, but the thought of the double penalty for breaking the contract made her unclench her fists. She ignored Victoria's provocation and politely bid farewell to the Cromwells. But Victoria, relentless, chased after her. She tilted her head up, her voice dripping with contempt. Hey, you haven't heard, have you? My dad is about to partner with the Sterling family. Julian's mother adores me and even wants me to be her daughter-in-law. I'm grateful you took care of Julian these 3 years while I was on my exchange program, but now I'm back. You'd better be smart and stay far away from him. Otherwise, don't blame me for what happens next. So that's why Julian was spending time with her. The 2 families were planning to unite through marriage. Willow forced a stiff smile. In the past, she would never have backed down when it came to Julian. But now, planning to fake her death and disappear, there was no point in fighting with Victoria. Willow looked at her calmly. Okay. Perhaps not expecting Willow to be so compliant, a flicker of surprise crossed Victoria's eyes. She scrutinized Willow. What are you plotting now? Willow shook her head. Nothing, I've just thought things through. By the time Victoria snapped out of it, Willow was long gone from the street. The 9 o'clock subway station was still bustling with people, but a wave of loneliness washed over Willow. She used to believe that wherever Julian was, that was her home. But it turned out that even after 9 years, she still couldn't blend into this city of dazzling wealth and glamour. When she entered the house, Julian was sitting on the sofa playing a video game. The cold draft from the open door made him frown. What are you standing at the door for? Trying to get me sick so you can take care of me? Willow quickly closed the door, standing in the entryway to brush off the chill from her clothes. The part-time job you mentioned, it's tutoring Victoria Cromwell's sister? Willow's hands unconsciously gripped the seams of her pants. It seemed Julian had been on his phone, chatting with Victoria. Julian glanced at Willow. What were you thinking? Did you forget that she? He suddenly clamped his mouth shut. Willow didn't wait for him to finish. She gave a self-mocking smile. Of course, Julian remembered. He knew exactly how horribly Victoria had treated her, how much she hated her, yet he could still hang out with Victoria and let her be bullied. Since he knew everything, what was this sudden concern about? Was he curious to see her reaction to helping her enemy? Willow nodded in silent confirmation, but Julian suddenly slammed his hand on the table, displeased. Willow Ashwood, are you really that cheap? If you need money, you can tell me. Why do you have to degrade yourself like this? If I had known you had so little self-respect, I never would have stood up for you back then. With that, Julian stormed back to his room. Willow watched his retreating back with a bitter smile. Cheap? Can being cheap put food on the table? She couldn't help but think back to 6 years ago. Back then, to save money on lunch, Willow would bring food from home to school every day. Her classmates knew of her predicament and would deliberately mock her, saying even a dog wouldn't eat her food. Julian had happened to witness this. He took the spoon from Willow's hand and, without any hesitation, took a bite. He had said, "Just because your families have a bit of money, you think you're better than everyone. You're not worthy of eating the food Willow's mother makes." He didn't know that such a small gesture had pieced her shattered self-esteem back together. But the salvation of childhood couldn't bridge the gap between them. Julian, after all, was a young master who had never worried about food or clothing. Then, as now, he didn't understand the helplessness of living in poverty. Her father's high medical bills during his illness had bankrupted the entire family, leaving them with a huge debt. It was only through Willow winning scholarships every year in college that they had managed to pay it all off. The Ashwood family, having lost its pillar, was still destitute. So what if the employer was Victoria Cromwell? Willow had no right to refuse. Just as her mother had said, she and Julian were two parallel lines that had briefly intersected, but were ultimately destined to part. After lecturing Willow, Julian gave her the cold shoulder for several days. Then one day, he suddenly called out to her and gave an order. "I've invited a few friends over for a get-together tonight. You'll stay and serve us." "Oh, and Victoria will be here too. Don't you just love serving her? This time, you can serve her to your heart's content." Julian's words were like sharp thorns piercing Willow's heart. The savior who had once protected her had turned around and plunged the blade into her own chest. And for the sake of that pitifully small amount of warmth, she had persisted in loving him for 9 years. Now that the love had been worn away, she finally realized that the person from back then was long gone. Willow couldn't help but feel it wasn't worth it. Fortunately, graduation was near. She would be able to leave soon. Suppressing the turmoil in her chest, Willow said faintly, "I understand." Willow's indifferent attitude sent a strange pang of panic through Julian. The Willow he knew would struggle and fight back even when bullied by Victoria, not stand there with a placid expression like she was now. But the words were already out. There was no taking them back. In the end, Julian said nothing more. He pretended to be absorbed in his game, watching as Willow twirled in the kitchen all afternoon. That evening, Julian's friends arrived one after another. As the music started, the atmosphere reached a fever pitch. No one paid any mind to Willow, who was completely out of place at the party, until Victoria Cromwell arrived. She called Willow over and handed her a glass of wine. "It's a reunion of old classmates. You're not going to be rude and refuse, are you?" Willow could clearly feel the malicious gazes of the crowd roaming freely over her. Among them was Julian's. She refused with a blank expression. "I'm on the clock right now. I can't drink." Hearing this, Victoria let out an exaggerated laugh and bantered with Julian. "Julian, your household is so strict. Even the housekeeper is this obedient." One of her friends chimed in, "Vicky, when you marry Julian, will he train you to be this obedient too?" Willow's gaze unconsciously drifted to Julian. A smile played on his lips as he fiddled with a lighter in his hand, showing no intention of joining the conversation. He didn't deny it, as if he approved of others calling Victoria his wife. The smile on Victoria's face widened. She deliberately dropped a piece of cake on her high-heeled shoe. "Since you're on the clock, then you're just the Sterling's housekeeper." "My shoe is dirty. Come here and wipe it clean for me." The fiery atmosphere instantly dropped to a freezing point. The party had finally reached its true climax. A crowd of faces wore smirks, ready for the show. Humiliating those weaker than themselves seemed to have become a pastime for this board group. Willow, long accustomed to this, calmly extended her hand. "All right, if you would please take it off for me, Miss Cromwell." Victoria swirled the wine in her glass, a playful smile on her lips. "I want you to kneel on the ground and wipe it for me. Right here, right now." Faced with Victoria's deliberate provocation, no one wanted to stand up for Willow. Everyone wanted to see her pride ground into the dust. Julian's gaze was fixed on Willow. Seeing her hesitate, his face darkened. Victoria's smile vanished and she barked, "What are you standing there for? Am I not even able to give you an order anymore? I'll count to 3. If you're not over here by then, you can forget about that tutoring job, too." At her words, Willow's body trembled. Her contract with the Cromwells was for half a month, and there were only a few days left. If she didn't want her previous efforts to go to waste and wanted to get paid, she could only agree. 3, 2. The moment Victoria's voice rang out, Willow fought back tears and resignedly walked towards her. Just as she was about to kneel, she heard a loud bang. The wine glass was slammed down hard. An icy aura emanated from Julian, and his tone carried a hint of a threat. Victoria, even a dog's owner deserves some respect. Don't go too far. But a housekeeper is just. Victoria's voice trailed off as she belatedly realized Julian was genuinely angry. She quickly took off her shoe and handed it to Willow. Take it and clean it. The people at the scene exchanged glances, all a bit bewildered by Julian's current attitude. But after just a few seconds, a couple of drunkards raised their glasses and cheered, trying to smooth things over, and the awkward atmosphere became lively again. Willow took the high heel to the bathroom to clean it. Unexpectedly, Victoria followed her in. She held her head high, taunting Willow with undisguised contempt. Willow, I almost feel sorry for you. You chased Julian for 9 years, and in his eyes, you're just one of the Sterling's dogs. But I never thought you'd be so dedicated to being a dog. Are you just a natural-born simp? Willow paid her no mind, focusing on cleaning the high heel in her hands. In the past, Willow would have definitely listed all of Julian's occasional acts of kindness, trying to prove that her feelings weren't misplaced. But now, she just felt that what Victoria said was the truth, so there was nothing to refute. After drying the shoe, she handed it back to Victoria. It's done. Seeing that Willow was ignoring her words, Victoria, not getting the reaction she wanted, seethed with anger and laughed maliciously. Put it on for me. Julian was there to save you just now. Let's see who comes to your rescue this time. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you don't need to go to my sisters for tutoring anymore. Before the party, I already told them you wouldn't be coming. Willow's hand, holding the shoe, froze. She glared at Victoria with fury. You went back on your word. I did no such thing, Victoria sneered, her eyes full of contempt. You get the job if you grovel, but did you? The noise from outside the door drowned out their voices. Willow was shaking with anger, but she was helpless. In the past, she could have asked her family or Julian for help. But now, her family was gone, and as for Julian, it would be a blessing if he didn't kick her while she was down. Her fingers loosened, and she let the high heel fall to the floor. I've always preferred to rely on myself. I hope you do too. And yes, I am the housekeeper's daughter, but that's not a reason for you to bully me. There's no shame in earning a living with my own 2 hands. Since the tutoring job was gone, Willow no longer had to put up with her. As the high heel clattered to the floor, Victoria let out a low laugh. You talk a good game, but weren't you just trying to use Julian to climb the social ladder? It's just a pity that because your mother's negligence killed Julian's father, there will always be a life between you two. You will never have a happy ending. That's not what happened, Willow retorted instinctively, but the bathroom door was forcefully pushed open. Julian, who had been standing outside for who knows how long, was radiating a chilling aura. Willow didn't know how much of her conversation with Victoria Julian had heard, and a shiver ran down her spine. His father's death had always been a sore spot for Julian. He firmly believed it was all due to Martha Ashwood's negligence, and that the Ashwoods were too afraid to admit their responsibility. It was because of this incident that Julian's attitude towards Willow had completely changed. He forbade anyone from ever mentioning it. Now, Victoria had brought it all out into the open. She was so terrified that her face turned pale and she kept backing away. But Julian didn't even glance at her. He raised his hand and clamped it around Willow's slender neck. He gritted his teeth, glaring fiercely at her. It's not like that. Then how is it? Are you still being stubborn? Is it so hard to admit that your mother made a mistake, that she was negligent in her care? If it weren't for my mother holding on to old feelings and keeping you in the Sterling house, I swear I'd snap your neck right now. The pressure on her neck grew tighter. Willow's vision began to double, but she gritted her teeth and didn't try to pry Julian's hand away. Willow trusted her mother. She was a long-time employee of the Sterlings, had watched Julian grow up, and held the utmost respect for his parents. Years ago, when Julian's mother, Eleanor, had just gotten pregnant, someone had tried to bribe Martha under the guise of a gift, asking her to add blood-thinning herbs to the daily meals. The bribe was $2 million, but she hadn't been tempted. Instead, she told the Sterlings. Afterward, she even insisted on tasting all the food herself before it was served. Later, after Julian's parents had a healthy baby, her mother was maliciously attacked in retaliation, and her leg was broken. Even now, she walked with a slight limp. How could Willow believe that such a person was negligent, leading to Mr. Sterling's death? That day, Richard Sterling had dismissed her mother, citing commercial secrets, and locked himself in the study. It wasn't until her mother heard the sound of a book falling that she worried something had happened. But the door was locked from the inside. She had to run to find the spare key. By the time the door was opened, Mr. Sterling was no longer breathing. No one knew what had happened in the study. Upon hearing the news of his father's death, Julian, in a fit of rage, had thrown Martha Ashwood out of the Sterling house. Willow was only allowed to stay because Eleanor Sterling remembered how Willow's father had helped her secure her position in the Sterling family years ago. Willow had explained this countless times, but Julian refused to believe her. Willow thought if her own death could stop him from tormenting her mother, then perhaps it wouldn't be such a bad thing. She closed her eyes, waiting for death to come. But the next second, the pressure on her neck suddenly vanished. Willow gasped for air, coughing so hard that tears streamed from her eyes. Julian's eyes were filled with hatred and other complex emotions that Willow couldn't decipher. He stared at her, then swung his fist into the glass mirror. Shards rained down and a few drops of crimson splattered on the white floor. Victoria, who had been hiding in the corner, let out a scream. "Get out, all of you! Get out, Victoria!" The culprit knew she was in the wrong. She nodded repeatedly and fled. The guests outside, hearing the commotion and seeing Victoria leave, didn't want to get on Julian's bad side, so they also left in a hurry. The huge house was now empty except for Willow and Julian. Willow glanced at Julian's bleeding fist. She walked around him, retrieved the first aid kit from the study, and returned to where Julian was licking his wounds in a corner. "Let me wrap that for you." The moment her hand touched Julian's, she was violently shoved away. Her own hand landed on the scattered shards of glass. Willow sucked in a sharp breath. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead, and her lips turned pale. But she gritted her teeth and didn't cry out in pain, her hand trembling as she pulled out the glass embedded deep in her flesh. Julian shot her a cold glance. "Don't pretend to be so kind." Willow's palm was numb with pain. She had no energy to argue with him. After pulling out the last piece of glass, she, enduring the pain, wrapped her hand in gauze, then walked back to Julian's side. She repeated, "Let me wrap that for you." This time, Julian didn't push her away. He let her carefully clean and bandage his wound with her trembling hands. As she stood up, Willow said softly, "Don't hurt yourself like this again. Your mother will be heartbroken." At her words, Julian threw his head back and looked at the ceiling, laughing self-deprecatingly. "That woman won't be heartbroken over me. In her mind, I'm just a puppet to be married off to secure alliances and help her control the Sterling family." Willow frowned, unable to understand what was going on in the mind of this young master. "You're her son. What mother in the world doesn't love her own child? She's arranging a marriage for your own good." Willow's words did nothing to comfort Julian. He shot up from his seat, laughing as he questioned her. "She loves me. She's never truly cared about me. She even treats you better than she treats me. And are you now advising me to accept this arranged marriage? You also think I should just let people control me, be someone else's pawn for my whole life. Don't you like me? Why are you siding with that woman?" Willow had never expected Julian to say such things. In her mind, Julian was a proud and opinionated person who would never compromise on something he had decided. Just like with his father's death, once he made up his mind, it couldn't be changed. But the Julian before her now looked like a shattered little boy who couldn't heal himself. She understood him less and less. Willow looked up at him. "Don't you like Victoria Cromwell? Then this marriage should be exactly what you want, right? Or are you going to marry me?" The moment the words left her mouth, Willow realized what she had said. Sure enough, the next second, she heard Julian's cold, malicious taunt. "Willow Ashwood, you're still indulging in those foolish fantasies. Let me tell you, Julian Sterling, will marry anyone but you. You're advising me to accept the arranged marriage because you want to get rid of me, right? In your dreams," Julian pulled Willow up and forcefully pushed her towards the door. Willow hastily blurted out, "That's not what I meant," but Julian didn't want to hear any more explanations. He threw her out the front door and stared at her coldly. "Willow Ashwood, you will spend your entire life atoning for your sins. Don't think you can get me to let you go that easily. You're just like my mother. You will never manipulate my life." The door slammed shut. Julian went back into the room and watched Willow from the window. She just stood there, staring blankly at the door, motionless. The strange feeling in the pit of Julian's stomach vanished. See, Willow Ashwood is a simp. Even when I yell at her, she doesn't leave. You can't get rid of her. He hadn't done anything wrong. No matter how cruel he was, it was what Willow deserved. The moment the heavy door slammed shut, Willow suddenly realized that her 9-year-long crush had come to an end. 9 years, and she still hadn't been able to unlock his heart. Years ago, her mother had been thrown out by Julian, yet she had stayed by his side out of a sense of obligation for her father's past kindness. She had even gone against her mother's wishes, applying to colleges only in the city, just to be a little closer to Julian. Now Julian had once again thrown her out with his own hands. Perhaps this was the price of her procrastination. Only now, all Willow wanted was to do as he wished and stay far, far away from Julian Sterling. With her phone smashed and no money to her name, Willow clutched her thin coat tightly. She took one last look at the closed door and turned to leave. She battled the cold wind all the way back to her dorm. When she woke up the next morning, Willow felt dizzy. During the graduation photo shoot, Victoria Cromwell sidled up to her and whispered, "I heard Julian kicked you out last night. Look at you now. What's the difference between you and a wretch?" Today, every other student wore a flawless makeup look. Only Willow stood before the camera in wrinkled clothes, her face flushed red with fever. Having had nothing to drink all night, Willow's throat felt parched and stuck together. She glanced at Victoria, her voice hoarse. "And you, fawning over Julian for all you're worth, acting like a simp. How is that any different from how I used to be?" "You, all right, everyone look over here, 3, 2, 1, cheese." The moment the photographer pressed the shutter, Willow felt a powerful force shove her from the waist. In the ensuing chaos, Willow tightly gripped the hand behind her, and the two of them tumbled down the steps together. Students screamed and rushed forward. Seeing her and Victoria covered in blood, they quickly sent them to the hospital. With a high fever and a concussion, Willow received 5 stitches on her forehead and was admitted. Victoria's injuries were minor, just a scrape on her knee, but fearing long-term damage, she cried and insisted on being kept for observation. And so, both of them ended up in the hospital, assigned to the same room. Seeing the scratches on Victoria's arm, Willow forced herself to sit up, her voice filled with resentment. "Victoria Cromwell, you deliberately pushed me down those steps. That's attempted murder." Victoria glanced at Willow, not angry but smiling. "Didn't you say you couldn't live without Julian? I was just helping you find release. What if one day you can't get over it and actually die at my and Julian's wedding? That would be awfully unlucky." But the next second, her expression suddenly changed. "Willow Ashwood, Julian and I are just having a business marriage. I never thought you'd be so vicious as to want me dead." A knot formed in Willow's stomach. She turned her head and saw Julian standing at the door of the hospital room, holding her suitcase. His face was contorted with rage. He strode over to Willow and slapped her hard across the face, snarling, "Willow Ashwood, you've truly disappointed me. You dare to try to kill someone now? Today it's Victoria. Who's it going to be next time? Me." Willow bit her lip. She had been with him for 9 years, yet he still so easily believed the words of others. Even though she kept telling herself she would be leaving soon, the grievances accumulated over the years erupted in that moment. Tears, like broken pearls, streamed down Willow's face. "Do you even know what really happened? And you just assume it was me. It was Victoria who pushed me down the stairs. I just grabbed her hand, and that's why we both fell." Victoria quickly rolled up her sleeve, crying as she showed Julian the scratch marks. "That's not what happened. It was Willow who tried to push me, but she lost her balance and fell forward. I reached out to save her, but she grabbed onto me and pulled us both down." "Julian, teasing is one thing, but you know I'm the most timid person. How could I possibly try to harm her?" Meeting Willow's expectant gaze, Julian walked straight to Victoria's side and looked coldly at Willow. "I think you were the one getting revenge on Vicky, weren't you? Last night, she promised me she wouldn't bother you anymore. She's not like you. She's never lied to me. Willow Ashwood, when you do something wrong, you apologize." Willow couldn't believe Julian trusted Victoria to this extent, but an apology was out of the question. Even if she had no background, it didn't mean they could trample all over her dignity. "Julian Sterling, you're the one who taught me never to admit to things I didn't do, so I will not apologize to her." Not ever. Julian froze. Lately, Willow had been defying him, both openly and subtly in many ways. This feeling of losing control infuriated him. Willow Ashwood, don't test my limits. Don't forget you still have a murderer for a mother, and I won't be lenient with her. Julian's words sent a wave of fury through Willow. She shouted, "What's between us has nothing to do with my family, and no matter what you say, I didn't push her." The moment she yelled, her brain suddenly felt starved of oxygen, and a wave of dizziness washed over her. She propped herself up with her hand on the edge of the bed, murmuring, "I didn't push her, I didn't." Victoria, seeing her goal was achieved, linked her arm with Julian's. "Julian, I don't want to stay in the same room as her. I want to go home." Seeing the tear-streaked corners of Victoria's eyes, Julian didn't refuse. He borrowed a wheelchair and pushed her to handle the discharge procedures. The 24-inch suitcase was abandoned on the floor, along with Willow. The tears Willow had been desperately holding back finally broke free. Crying, she found her wallet in the suitcase, bought a new phone, and booked a ticket home to be by her mother's side. Julian had always hated her mother. She couldn't afford to take the risk. After completing her own discharge, Willow eagerly boarded the train home. Before getting on, she transferred her entire life savings to Julian's account. The note read, "Rent." Looking at the transfer successful message on her phone screen, Willow felt that the last bond between her and Julian had been severed. Julian Sterling, from now on, were truly even. The train pulled into the station. From a distance, Willow saw her mother, her hair now streaked with white. She ran to her mother and threw her arms around her. "Mom, I missed you." Martha Ashwood noticed the wound beneath the brim of her hat, her eyes filled with heartache. "How did this happen? You child, you always hide things from me. Don't you know your mother worries?" Willow suppressed the lump in her throat and said playfully, "It's nothing, just a little bump." "Mom, I'm hurt. Aren't you going to hurry home and make me something delicious to help me recover?" All right, let's go home. Oh, I forgot to tell you, young Mr. Hale heard you were coming back and came over to give you a welcome home dinner." As she spoke of this, young Mr. Hale, the smile on Martha's face grew wider. "You can tell he's really taken with you." On the way, she praised him endlessly but wouldn't reveal his name, only saying Willow would know when she saw him. Seeing her mother's smile, Willow felt the dark clouds that had been hanging over her heart finally disperse. Before she knew it, they were at their front door. Just as Willow was about to open it, the door swung open from the inside. A handsome, cheerful man stood in the doorway, smiling gently. "Long time no see, Willow Ashwood." Willow stared at the man for a few seconds before it clicked. "You're Ethan Hale?" Willow was stunned. She had thought her mother's words were just to comfort her, that the blind date would be some simple, honest man. She never expected it to be Ethan Hale, the younger son of their old neighbors, the Hales. Willow was suddenly at a loss for words. It was Ethan who broke the silence. "The food's ready. How about you try my cooking today?" He cooked. Willow was even more surprised. After so many years with Julian, she had met plenty of talented young men. But all of them, including Julian, would rather die than cook, insisting that cooking was a woman's job, as if doing it themselves would somehow unman them. In the dining room, while eating the food Ethan had prepared, Willow secretly sized him up. Taut arms, broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and the faint outline of strong muscles under his blue shirt. If only he weren't dressed so modestly, Willow thought, swallowing hard and devouring 2 large bowls of rice. After the meal, Ethan even offered to help with the dishes, but was gently pushed back by Martha. Under the warm, yellow light, Ethan gazed at Willow with such tenderness that she felt flustered. You, they both spoke at the same time, paused, and then couldn't help but laugh together. The ice was instantly broken. Ethan suppressed his smile. "You go first." Willow mulled it over before finally speaking. "Do you like me?" "Yes," Ethan Hale answered without a moment's hesitation. "I've liked you for a very long time." Ethan slowly began to tell a story from the past. In high school, because he was overweight, Ethan was always bullied by his classmates. He would give them all his allowance money, but even after they took it, they would still beat him up. That day was no different, but as he was being hit, someone suddenly shouted, "The teacher's coming," the bullies scattered. A dust-covered hand reached out to him. "Are you okay? Get up, they've all run off." Lowering the arms that had been protecting his head, Ethan saw a girl, just as disheveled as he was, standing in a sliver of light, her hand extended to him. He later found out that the girl, like him, was also a target of bullying. Yet when she saw someone else being picked on, she was still willing to step up. Ethan's heart was moved. He hoped that one day he could be the one to protect her, so he resolved to lose weight and even learn to box. Unfortunately, his family ran into trouble and he had to go abroad. Later, he heard the news that the girl had fallen in love with someone else. Ethan looked earnestly into Willow's eyes. "Wills, I will always wait for you." The sudden confession threw Willow into a tizzy. She had never imagined that while she was chasing after Julian, someone else was waiting for her to turn around. After seeing Ethan off, Willow lay in bed, replaying the day's events in her mind. In his eyes, she saw a reflection of her former self, so passionate and sincere. Moreover, Ethan's family background was more than enough to protect her and her mother. The thought had barely formed before Willow dismissed it. She, who had been let down so cruelly by Julian, how could she take advantage of Ethan's sincere feelings? With this in mind, Willow decided to spend more time getting to know him. Even if they didn't end up as a couple, it would be good to have him as a friend. After returning home, Willow received messages from Julian's mother almost daily. The subtext was always the same: give up on Julian and go live the life you want. Eleanor Sterling was as polite to Willow as ever, but she clearly did not approve of her and Julian being together. Left with no other choice, Willow eventually told her that she already had a boyfriend. Willow had thought she could finally have some peace, but she never expected Julian to find her so quickly. "Heard you're dating someone?" Willow was surprised to suddenly receive a message from Julian. She glanced at the screen but didn't reply. Since she had already left, she didn't want to get entangled with him again. But today, Julian was uncharacteristically persistent. He sent message after message. "Heard you're dating someone? Don't play dead. Answer me." Willow sighed and finally replied with a simple, "Yes, who is it?" He immediately shot back. "I'd like to see who has such terrible taste that they'd actually fall for you." Although Willow had already guessed Julian's intentions, her brow furrowed when she saw the message. "It's none of your business." After sending the reply, Willow turned off her phone and went back to helping her mother knead dough. Ethan had cooked the entire last meal. Her mother insisted it was her turn to show off her skills today. Julian stared at the 5 stark words in the chat window, frozen in place. Willow, who had always been so submissive and deferential to him, now dared to reply to him like this. Willow, who used to try to connect everything in her life to him, was now saying it was none of his business. A surge of anger shot through him, but when he called her, he found her phone was off. She was the one who had promised to stay by his side forever, yet when he returned home the next day, all her belongings had vanished from her room. He had only heard that Willow was in the hospital and wanted to bring her a change of clothes. He just happened to find a packed suitcase in her room. At first, he thought Willow had just gone home to visit her aging mother. But as the days passed, Julian returned to a dark, empty house every evening. It was only by chance, from one of that woman's nagging messages about his marriage, that he saw Willow's name and learned she had a boyfriend. She had said she wasn't coming back. Julian suddenly felt a crushing weight on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He wanted to do something to vent his anger, but as his hand was about to strike the small, handmade wooden cabin sitting on the side, he froze. That was on his 20th birthday. Willow had beamingly presented the little house she had built herself. "I saw the design plans on your desk. I found a master woodworker to teach me. Is it exactly like the home you imagined?" His gaze shifted to the limited edition figurine next to it. That was also a gift from Willow. To get that rare model, she had eaten instant noodles for 2 months, scoured the entire city, and finally pulled it from a pile of common, duplicate figurines. And the cactus by the desk, said to absorb computer radiation. Damn it, without him even realizing it, his life had become filled with her shadow. Unwilling to accept it, Julian gritted his teeth and continued to press her. "Willow Ashwood, what's the meaning of that money transfer? What kind of housekeeper pays her employer rent? The amount is so specific. Are you trying to get rid of a beggar?" The question that had been bothering him for days was finally out. His knuckles, gripping the phone, turned white. He planned to mock her mercilessly after she finished her explanation. The ticking of the second hand was deafeningly clear. Willow finally replied. She said, 81,621. was my entire life savings. I'm using everything I have to buy out our 9 years of memories. Julian Sterling, we are even now. Willow's words sent a jolt through Julian's heart. He suddenly felt a sense of unease, as if something important was quietly slipping away from him. Memories of the past flashed through Julian's mind. Their first meeting, him standing up for her, his father's death, his mother's tears. He ran his hands through his hair, curling up in a corner, trembling with anger. He muttered to himself, "You think $80,000 can buy my father's life? Willow Ashwood, you must be insane. You will owe me for the rest of your life." After calming down, Julian withdrew the $81,621 Willow had transferred to him and stuffed it into an envelope. He decided to go to her and settle the score in person. On the way, he rehearsed the reunion scene over and over in his head. He thought, when I see her, I'll throw the money right in her face. And then he would tell her, with all the malice he could muster, that this money couldn't buy his father's life, that they were destined to be entangled for a lifetime, and that they could never be even. Meanwhile, before Martha Ashwood could finish cooking, Ethan Hale arrived at the door, laden with gifts. The moment he stepped inside, he tied on an apron and dove into the kitchen, helping Martha with this and that. His bustling figure couldn't help but remind Willow of Julian from many years ago. Back then, feeling sorry for her hardworking mother, she would always help with chores after school. Julian, worried it would affect her studies, had secretly pulled her aside. "Willow, from now on, you do your homework with me first, and then I'll help you and your mom with the chores, okay?" The boy's sparkling eyes were full of concern. How could Willow not understand his intentions? From that day on, Julian would always slip into the kitchen right after finishing his homework, clumsily helping her mother wipe this and that. Willow saw it all, but that happiness was fleeting. The Julian who had occupied her entire youth was now just a memory. "Wills, wash your hands. It's time to eat." Ethan's voice pulled Willow from her reverie. Looking at the steaming dishes on the table, she shook off the troubling thoughts and headed to the dining table. During the meal, Ethan kept putting food on Willow's plate, asking about her preferences. She felt a bit overwhelmed by the attention and subconsciously placed a chicken leg on his plate. "You should eat too. You've been so focused on me this whole meal." Ethan's ears instantly turned bright red. He quickly lowered his head and started shoveling rice into his mouth. "Wills, your mom's cooking is amazing. If I ate like this every day, I'd turn into a big fatso in no time." The remark made all three of them burst out laughing. Willow's eyes grew moist. This was the kind of home she had always dreamed of. After dinner, Martha urged the two of them to go for a walk together to get to know each other better. Willow couldn't refuse and had to agree. The calls of street vendors in the small alley reminded Willow of her childhood. She couldn't help but stare a little too long at a stall selling sugar figurines. The next moment, a cute little sugar rabbit appeared in front of her. "Go on, eat it. You don't have to be shy with me. Grown-ups can eat candy too." Taking the little rabbit from Ethan's hand, Willow suddenly thought of the stuffed rabbit back in that distant city. Had Julian thrown it in the trash by now? Forget it. Don't think about it. Seeing Willow just staring at the sugar figure, Ethan asked again, "Wills, would you?" "What?" Snapping back to reality, Willow felt apologetic. She looked up at Ethan. "I'm sorry, I was spacing out. What did you say?" Ethan wasn't annoyed. He just looked at her with hopeful eyes. "I said, my sister is trying on wedding dresses tomorrow. I have a last-minute thing at work and can't go. Could you go with her?" Perhaps afraid of pressuring her, he quickly added, "If you think it's too soon, just pretend I didn't say anything." Thinking about how she had zoned out twice while with him today, Willow felt a little embarrassed. She squeezed out a bright smile. "Sure, don't forget to send me the time and place." The sugar figure melted in her mouth, the sweetness spreading from her tongue to her heart. It was so sweet. The next day, Willow woke up early. It was her first time meeting Sophie Hale, so she couldn't be too casual. She picked out a dress and, after carefully getting ready, waited outside the bridal shop. A black car pulled up, and a slender leg emerged from the open door. Sophie looked a lot like Ethan, with fair skin and big eyes that made you want to be close to her. In just half a day, the two became fast friends. Sophie pointed to a wedding dress. "Willow, I think this one would look amazing on you. Do you want to try it on?" Willow quickly shook her head. "I'm here to help you try on dresses, not me." But she couldn't resist Sophie's pleading, and she was half pushed into the dressing room. While changing, her phone rang. Seeing it was Julian, Willow was surprised. Why would he be calling me? But it didn't matter anymore. She shook her head and declined the call. But after declining 3 calls in a row, the phone kept vibrating. Exasperated, Willow finally answered. "Can I help you? Where are you? I'm coming to find you now." Before she could speak, Sophie's voice came through. "Willow, I brought you the dress. You're going to look so beautiful in it." On the other end of the line, Julian felt a sense of dread. He quickly asked, "Trying on what wedding dress?" "Willow Ashwood, are you getting married?" Julian didn't get an answer from Willow. The call was disconnected. He tried calling back several times, but there was no response. His face darkened as he walked out of the airport. He never thought the first news he'd hear upon setting foot in this small town would be that she was getting married. Why should a murderer's daughter get to be happy? In a fit of rage, Julian hailed a taxi and headed straight for the bridal shops. He refused to believe he couldn't find her. One shop, then another. Finally, in the third one, he found her. Through the glass window, he saw a woman in a simple, elegant wedding dress. Her light makeup didn't diminish her beauty. Instead, it gave her a fresh, pure look. For a moment, Julian was mesmerized. The shop assistants kept giving her a thumbs up, praising her, and saying she would be the most beautiful bride. Everything before him was a stark reminder that Willow had started a new life, that she had truly left him. Snapping back to reality, an inexplicable emotion surged through him. He pushed open the door, strode up to the woman, and demanded, "Willow Ashwood, are you in that much of a hurry to get married?" Faced with the sudden appearance of Julian, Willow was also stunned. She didn't want to get entangled with him again. Quickly composing herself, she decided to play along. "Yes, I'm getting married." Willow's indifferent gaze ignited Julian's fury. He grabbed her hand and started pulling her outside. "Getting married without my permission? Don't even think about it." Having just changed into the wedding dress, Willow was still wearing the ill-fitting high heels from the dressing room. The moment Julian pulled her out the door, she stumbled and fell to the ground. The sharp pain brought tears to her eyes. "Julian Sterling, what is wrong with you?" Seeing Willow fall, Julian finally stopped, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's wrong with me?" "Willow Ashwood, my mother and I are still grieving, but you, a murderer's daughter, think you can just get a happy ending so easily?" A murderer's daughter. Those 3 words seemed to nail her to a pillar of shame. Willow felt the murmurs of the crowd around her like scorching rays, burning her skin. "Don't say it again. I know." In Julian's heart, her identity was not just a housekeeper, but also a murderer's daughter. She once again felt her 9 years were not worth it. Willow looked up at him with her red, swollen eyes. "Julian, it was your father who locked the study door, preventing a timely rescue. My mother called 911 the moment she found out. What right do you have to call her a murderer? And since you're already planning to marry Victoria Cromwell, why are you trying to ruin my wedding?" Julian didn't know what was wrong with him either. Willow's string of questions left him speechless. He could only grasp for a random excuse. "If you weren't guilty, why are you in such a hurry to get married? It's because you're afraid the truth will come out and you won't be able to find a husband." Willow lowered her eyes, letting her tears fall freely. "Because I want a home where I can be myself. All these years in the Sterling house, I've lived like a guest, always careful not to eat too much, afraid you'd use it as an excuse to kick me out. But your heart wasn't healed, so I couldn't leave. It wasn't until I saw you and Victoria getting closer, even starting to plan your wedding, that I knew the truth didn't matter anymore. It was time for me to leave." This was the first time since the incident that Julian had heard Willow's true feelings. He had thought that just being by his side should have been enough for her. Besides, that woman was paying her a generous salary every month. She should have been content. He never imagined that she was so unhappy. Watching Willow's tears fall, Julian felt a pang of regret. Maybe he should have tried to see things from her perspective. He was about to reach out his hand, but then he heard Willow's quiet plea. "Julian Sterling, I'm begging you, let me go." Julian's hand clenched into a fist. A nameless fire ignited within him. The guilt vanished. He pulled the envelope of money from his pocket and, just as he had imagined, threw it at Willow, saying viciously, "Willow Ashwood, this isn't even enough to get rid of a beggar, and you think you can buy my father's life. You're far too naive." Before leaving, he squatted down and leaned close to her ear. "Accept your fate. We are destined to be entangled in this life until death do us part." As Willow limped to the entrance of the alley, she saw a faint glimmer of light in the shadows. It seemed someone was standing under the eaves. As she got closer, she saw it was Julian. He was holding a small bag from a pharmacy. When he saw her approach, he huffed and turned his face away. "Just bought it on a whim. For you." Inside the bag were several tubes of ointment for bruises and swelling. After Julian had stormed off in a huff during the day, the image of Willow's swollen ankle had suddenly popped into his mind. On impulse, he had walked into a pharmacy. Not knowing what to buy, he ended up buying the most expensive of everything. He thought, "I'm offering an olive branch this time." Willow should calm down now. An awkward silence hung between them. Willow didn't take the bag. She pursed her lips and walked past him. She hadn't taken 2 steps before he grabbed her hand, his tone laced with impatience. "How long are you going to keep this up?" Willow pulled her hand free and took a step back, her voice cold. "What makes you think I'm throwing a tantrum?" Sensing her distance, Julian's face darkened. "In the past, no matter what I did, you never thought of leaving. Why now?" Why? Willow wanted to ask herself the same question. Why didn't she leave when she woke up to find Julian had secretly abandoned her at the campsite? Why didn't she leave when Julian publicly stomped on the gift she had painstakingly prepared and mocked her for being poor? Why didn't she leave when Victoria Cromwell openly humiliated her, claiming to be Julian's fiancé? Thinking back, she realized that all these years, despite knowing the truth, she had always approached Julian with a sense of atonement. That's why she was always so careful, so insecure, so pitiful around him. It made him treat her like a stray cat or dog, thinking that all he had to do was beckon, and she would come running, tail wagging. But Willow had forgotten that she had nothing to atone for. Once she understood this, the desire to argue vanished. She looked at him calmly. "Because I don't want to be a dog anymore." Julian's mouth opened, but he didn't know how to respond. For years, he had taken his anger out on Willow, but he knew she still liked him. But now, he changed the subject. "My mother misses you. She asked me to bring you back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come looking for you." Willow smiled. "Julian, your acting is as terrible as ever. The last time I spoke with your mother on the phone, she said she was busy preparing your and Victoria's engagement party. She also said she hoped I would find my own happiness soon." Having been rebuffed several times today, Julian's temper finally snapped. He put on his usual arrogant, playboy facade. "Willow Ashwood, don't push your luck. You should be atoning for the mistakes your mother made. You should stay by my side for the rest of your life, for my amusement. Until one day I get tired of you, maybe?" Slap the crisp sound echoed in the silent night. Before Julian could finish, a red handprint appeared on his cheek, which began to swell. He was stunned. He stared at Willow in disbelief. "You hit me," Willow's chest heaved. With red-rimmed eyes, she shot back, "Julian Sterling, I really regret not slapping you sooner. You're a hopeless scumbag. The most humiliating thing I've ever done in my life was to love you." Furious with Willow, Julian went straight home after their argument and agreed to the marriage alliance with the Cromwell family. The happiest person of all was Victoria Cromwell. Although she had the support of Julian's mother and had always acted as his fiancé, he had never officially agreed, leaving her feeling insecure. Upon hearing the news, she stayed up all night choosing invitations and flaunting them on her social media. When she saw Julian, she linked her arm in his and suggested, "Julian, Willow has loved you for so long. I'm afraid she might do something drastic. I want to go check on her. Will you come with me?" Julian didn't see the triumphant glint in her eyes. He only knew that it had been a while since he'd seen the stubborn Willow. In the end, he nodded. Afraid Willow wouldn't show up, Julian had Victoria contact their old class president to organize a class reunion. Willow received the message while having dinner with Ethan Hale. Seeing her frown, Ethan asked, "What's wrong? Is the food not to your liking today?" She quickly waved her hand. "No, it's not that. The group chat is talking about a class reunion." "Are you worried about seeing the classmates who used to bully you?" Ethan blurted out in a moment of panic, then quickly backtracked. "Did I say the wrong thing?" Willow looked at his hesitant expression and burst out laughing. "Mr. Hale, would you do me the honor of being my date for the event? The honor would be all mine." On the appointed day, Ethan drove to Willow's house early. When he saw her walk out in a long white dress, a look of awe flashed in his eyes. "Wills, you look beautiful." Blushing, Willow got into the passenger seat. When they arrived at the restaurant, Ethan went to park the car, so she went inside first. The private room was already full of people, with only one empty seat next to Victoria. Willow calmly sat down, only to hear Victoria's smug question. "Willow, you stopped being a housekeeper at the Sterlings and ran back home. Did you hear about my engagement to Julian and come back to nurse your broken heart?" The atmosphere instantly froze. The gazes of the gossip-hungry crowd were fixed on Willow. She calmly poured herself a glass of orange juice. "All you talk about is Julian Sterling. Can't you live without him?" Victoria was momentarily speechless, then quickly put on a fake smile. "I just saw you came alone and wanted to show some concern." "No need. My boyfriend will be here any minute." Victoria didn't believe her. She just assumed Willow was lying to protect her pride. She leisurely peeled a shrimp for Julian, scoffing, "Actually, you don't have to be like this. Everyone here knows you're head over heels for Julian. Making up a boyfriend just to save face will only make you a laughingstock." Several people around them started to snicker. "Exactly, we're all old classmates. Even if no one wants you, no one will laugh at you." "Yeah, unless they can't help it." Willow's face was expressionless. Just as Victoria was about to continue her taunts, the door was pushed open again. "Sorry, Wills, am I late?" Ethan was wearing a light blue shirt, with the top 2 buttons undone, revealing a sexy collarbone. He strode over, picked up a spare chair, and placed it next to Willow. "Hello, everyone, I'm Will's boyfriend. I'm late, so I'll punish myself with a drink." As he spoke, he met Victoria's stiff gaze and, using Willow's glass, downed a full cup. The room fell silent. But the next moment, Julian, who had been quiet all this time, suddenly turned his head. He sized up Ethan with a blatant, malicious stare. "Ethan Hale, I never thought you had it in you to steal someone right from under my nose." Ethan looked at Willow, not even sparing Julian a glance. "You're the one who couldn't seize the opportunity. Don't blame Wills for choosing me." Seeing the tension escalate, Willow placed a shrimp on Ethan's plate. "I hear the shrimp here is good. You should try it." Just as Ethan was about to speak, Julian, inexplicably enraged, suddenly slammed his chopsticks down. "Willow Ashwood, don't you know you're allergic to shrimp? You're giving him shrimp. In a bit, he'll be drunk, and you'll be the one passed out on the floor." Willow was taken aback. She found Julian's current behavior very strange. Feeling Victoria tugging at his sleeve, Julian realized his outburst. He snorted, "What a tramp. Good thing I never thought much of you back then." Before Willow could say anything, Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "Julian Sterling, you watch your mouth," Julian shot back, not to be outdone. "What fatso, you want to fight me?" The atmosphere instantly became hostile. Willow and Victoria quickly stepped in to separate them. And so, the class reunion ended on a sour note. Coming out of the hospital, Willow looked at Ethan's swollen lip with guilt. "I'm so sorry. I dragged you into this as my shield and got you hurt." Ethan quickly waved his hands, his tone incredibly gentle. "Wills, you don't have to apologize to me. I did it all willingly. I will never let them bully you again." After today's events, Willow suddenly didn't know how to act around him. She could only change the subject. "This is my stop. Thanks for the ride home." After waving goodbye, Willow pushed open the door, only to be met with the sight of her mother collapsed in the yard. "Mom," luckily, Ethan hadn't gone far. He drove Martha Ashwood to the hospital in time, saving her life. The doctor said it was a sudden heart attack and that she didn't have much time left. Hearing the diagnosis, Willow's world spun. She cried and begged, "Doctor, please, save my mom. She's not even 50. How can she not have much time left?" "It's a miracle your mother woke up at all this time. Her body is completely depleted. Spend the time she has left with her." Watching the doctors retreating back, Willow could no longer hold herself up. She crumpled, and Ethan, quick on his feet, caught her. In Willow's eyes, her mother had always been an invincible warrior. She had failed to notice her mother's stooped back and increasingly thin frame. She curled up in a corner, hugging her knees tightly, repeatedly asking, "Why my mother? I just got back. I haven't even had a chance to properly take care of her. Why is she leaving me?" Ethan didn't know how to comfort her. He could only hold her tight, repeating, "You still have me." But to Willow, the world felt so lonely that she was the only one left in it. After calming down, Willow dragged her heavy legs to the bathroom to wash her face. Seeing her red, swollen eyes in the mirror, she couldn't help but cry again. When she came out, Ethan was gone. The door to her mother's room was ajar, and she could hear a faint, intermittent conversation. "Young mister. Hale, you're a good boy. I'm entrusting my Willow to you. Mrs. Ashwood, you'll get better soon. It's not too late to entrust Wills to me then. Don't try to comfort me. I know my own body. Willow has carried too much for me in this life. It's I who have failed her. My biggest regret is not being able to see her get married with my own eyes. Do you understand what I mean?" "I understand." The voices inside fell silent. Martha had fallen back asleep. Willow's face was cold. She pressed her hand tightly against her mouth, refusing to make a sound. The scene was painfully familiar. Before her own father passed away, he had called her mother to his side to give his final instructions. She had been too young then to understand death. She had cried for her father many times, and it was her mother who had held her tight and rocked her to sleep. But now her mother was leaving too. There would be no one left to comfort her so gently. The moon hung high in the night sky, the stars seeming dimmer. When Ethan came out, Willow was sitting in the hallway, staring blankly. He walked over and took her hand. "Wills, don't worry. Your mom is asleep." After a long hesitation, he decided to be honest with her. "Your mom said she wants to see us get married before she goes. If you're willing, we can get married. If you're not, I can act it out with you. I wanted to know what you think." Willow had thought Ethan had agreed just to give her mother peace of mind. She looked at the man kneeling before her in disbelief. "But that's not fair to you. Love isn't about fairness. It's about willingness." Ethan's face and the memory of Julian's face overlapped again. Willow knew very well that her recent good feelings for him were because he was so much like the old Julian. That's why she had been hesitating. She had wanted to wait until her heart slowly made room for Ethan, to let their love and marriage happen naturally. But the current situation left no room for hesitation. Besides, Ethan's devotion to her was undeniable. Willow's tears fell again. She thanked him sincerely. "Ethan, thank you for still being willing to stay by my side. Let's get married." Failing to provoke Willow at the class reunion left Julian frustrated for a long time. He didn't care about the engagement. Bored, he wandered into his late father's study. His eyes scanned the bookshelf, looking for a book to pass the time. Suddenly, a book titled A Brief History of Time caught his eye. He felt the font on the spine was a bit odd. Taking it down, he found a small, dark camera hidden inside. Following the wire, he made a discovery. He didn't know why his father had installed the camera, but since it wasn't set to auto-delete, the memory card was completely full. With trembling hands, Julian found the recording from the day his father died. In the video, his father, citing the need to protect a business secret, sent Martha Ashwood away. He then took a document from a drawer. After reading it, his breathing suddenly became rapid. He clutched his chest in pain and then collapsed. From outside, the door came Martha's anxious voice and the sound of her dialing 911. When she finally found the spare key and opened the door, she rushed in, knelt on the floor, and began performing first aid. By the time the ambulance arrived, her arms were stiff with exhaustion. The belated truth hit Julian like a tidal wave. He froze completely. All the beliefs he had held so firmly were shattered. A voice in his head seemed to mock him. "You idiot. Willow explained it to you countless times, but you refused to believe her. Now it's too late to regret it. She's already left you." His head throbbed. The document from the video flashed in his mind. Zooming in, he could just barely make out 3 words: paternity test. What paternity test? He picked up his phone, intending to ask his mother, but was met with 99 messages from Victoria Cromwell, undoubtedly about the wedding. Julian had no intention of responding, but he froze when he saw the latest message. "Julian, do you think Willow is planning to get married on the same day as us, just to pretend she's marrying you?" Ha ha ha, attached was an invitation. On the bride's line, written in bold, was Willow Ashwood. Julian felt the blood freeze in his veins. 9 years of memories flooded his mind. He remembered leaving Willow asleep at the campsite, secretly watching from behind as she helplessly wiped away her tears. He remembered kicking over the Lego set she had spent all night building, mocking her for only being able to afford cheap gifts. He remembered Victoria humiliating Willow in front of everyone, while he did nothing. How sad she must have been. Julian suddenly raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. The numb pain brought an unprecedented clarity to his thoughts. He finally understood why he had been so angry after Willow left, why he had been acting so strangely, why he had been so stubbornly determined to keep her by his side. Because he had always seen Willow's sincere heart, but he had stubbornly blamed her for his father's death. Before he knew the truth, he could convince himself it was for revenge. But now, he didn't want to lie to himself anymore. It was because of love. Having figured it out, Julian immediately booked a flight. He had to get to Willow right away. He couldn't just stand by and watch her marry someone else. Booking successful, without even packing a suitcase, Julian rushed out the door and sped to the airport. When Julian arrived at Willow's house, she was just about to leave to deliver a meal to the hospital. Before the taxi had even come to a complete stop, he threw open the door and ran to her. "Willow, I know everything. Can you please cancel the wedding?" Startled, Willow recognized him and disgustedly slapped his hand away. "Julian, I don't have time to play house with you. Marriage is a serious matter, not a game for your amusement." For the first time in 9 years, Julian saw clear disgust in Willow's eyes. His breath hitched. I didn't mean it like that. I mean, will you marry me?" Willow's frown deepened. She looked at him sternly. "My mom is in the hospital. I really don't have time for your games. Please, can you just leave?" Her serious expression frightened him, but he was persistent, following closely behind her. "What's wrong with Mrs. Ashwood? I'll go to the hospital with you. I'll apologize to her in person, okay?" In a hurry, Willow hailed a taxi and left him far behind. In the rearview mirror, Julian's figure grew smaller and smaller. A strange feeling stirred in Willow's heart, and she had to keep telling herself, "Don't believe a word he says." After feeding her mother, Willow was washing the dishes when she saw Julian again. He approached her, once again putting on a cheerful face. "I asked the attending physician. Mrs. Ashwood had a heart attack. If you're willing, I can find the best doctor for her." Although Willow didn't know what game Julian was playing, the offer of a doctor for her mother made her pause. "Julian Sterling, I'll trust you one last time. If you dare to joke about my mother's condition, I swear I'll kill you." Hearing this, Julian's face lit up. He happily ran off to make a call. But the doctor who arrived 3 days later brought no good news. In that moment, Willow felt as if they were repeatedly pronouncing her mother's death sentence. She hid in the stairwell, burying her head and crying. A hand gently clasped her shoulder. "Willow, I owe you an apology for all these years. I'm sorry I only just now found out that my father's death had nothing to do with your mother. I'm sorry I hurt you so deeply out of displaced anger. I'm sorry I couldn't save your mom. But from now on, I don't want to lose you again. Give me a chance to make it up to you, please." Willow had waited so long to hear those words. In the past, she would have eagerly agreed. But now, all she wanted was for her mother to pass away without regrets. She pushed Julian's hand away and forced a smile. "It's too late, Julian. I'm getting married." When she opened the door, Ethan Hale was standing outside. He looked at Julian coldly. "I'm grateful that you could find a doctor for Wills, Mr. Sterling, but please have some self-respect and stay away from her. Otherwise, I don't mind if things get ugly." The moment the door slammed shut, Julian truly felt his Willow slipping away. But she had chased him for 9 years. He wouldn't give up so easily now. Julian didn't interfere, but Willow's wedding still didn't happen as planned. Her mother's condition had worsened, and she could pass away at any moment. Willow had to postpone the wedding and spent all her time by the hospital bed. Julian, afraid of upsetting Martha, didn't dare show his face, but he silently kept watch from the bench outside the room. To ease her burden, he would order meals in advance and pass them to her at mealtimes. Pained by how hard she was working, he hired a top-tier caregiver to help bathe Martha and monitor her condition. Aside from keeping vigil with her, he arranged almost everything for Willow. This, of course, enraged Ethan Hale. He had his father call Julian's mother, warning Julian to stay away from Willow. Soon, Julian received a call from his own mother. He covered the phone and stepped aside. "Mom, I know what you're going to say. Please cancel the engagement party. I'll go to the Cromwells and apologize myself." But instead, he heard Victoria's hysterical screams. "Julian Sterling, the engagement party will not be canceled. I will wait for you to show up. Victoria, I am not getting engaged to you. I've made my decision, and I won't change it." The moment the words left his mouth, Julian felt an immense sense of relief, as if the darkness had been torn open, letting a sliver of light through. Later, Victoria insisted on holding the engagement party, but she never saw Julian. In a rage, she smashed everything at the venue. When she learned that Julian had been at the hospital with Willow all this time, she made a call to an unknown number. "Hello, I'd like to discuss a business proposition with you." The engagement party turned Victoria Cromwell into a laughingstock. Julian's mother, Eleanor Sterling, called him relentlessly. "You brat, do you have any idea what a mess you've made? You've brought shame upon the Sterling family. Now you get back here, go to the Cromwells and apologize. Vicky likes you. There's still a chance to salvage this marriage." Julian had anticipated this outcome. In the past, he had thought he would just muddle through life and had resignedly agreed. But this time, he only wanted to follow his heart. He stood calmly in the payment line at the hospital. "Mom, don't force me anymore. I told you I wouldn't get engaged. You were the ones who insisted on not canceling. I'll apologize to the Cromwells when I'm done here." His mother was furious. "You boy, why won't you listen to reason?" "Mom, I have a question for you. You used to want Willow as your daughter-in-law so badly. Why the sudden preference for Victoria now? I was foolish before. Willow can't offer you any support, unlike the Cromwells." Julian's hand, holding the receipt, tightened and his face grew dark. "Mom, I'll work for what I want. I don't need to rely on a woman. In any case, I won't marry anyone but Willow." After hanging up, Julian looked up and saw Willow in the crowd. A sense of calm washed over him. She ran up to him, out of breath. Seeing the bill in his hand, she looked a little angry. "Julian, taking care of my mother is my responsibility. You should go home. Your mother must be worried." Julian smiled and patted her head. "All right, I'll stay with you for a while longer, then I'll go home and break off the engagement." After spending this time together, Willow felt like the Julian she had waited for so many years had returned. Sometimes, seeing him so exhausted he would fall asleep just sitting there, the iceberg in her heart began to melt. Before she could even thank him, she saw a swarm of medical staff rushing towards her mother's room. "Patient in bed 2 is in cardiac arrest. We need to save her." Willow's heart clenched. She turned and sprinted towards the room. Watching the doctors shock her mother's body with the defibrillator again and again, she was terrified. She instinctively went to bite her hand, but the expected pain never came. She looked down to see Julian's hand there instead. He covered her eyes from behind, gently soothing her. "Don't look. If you're scared, bite me." The solid chest behind her allowed Willow's taut nerves to relax slightly. She stared at the changing numbers on the clock, silently praying. When the doctor, drenched in sweat, came out, he announced that Martha Ashwood had passed away. The patient had lost the will to live. When we arrived, her breathing tube was already disconnected. Your mother didn't want to be a burden to you. Her only remaining family was gone. An immense wave of grief washed over Willow. Her ears were ringing, and she couldn't hear a single word. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed. The two men standing before her were getting along surprisingly well. One was holding a glass of water, the other helping her sit up, their movements impossibly gentle. Willow understood. She asked, "Where's my mom?" Julian answered carefully, "Mrs. Ashwood is still in the morgue. The doctor said you fainted from overwhelming grief. We didn't dare make any arrangements without you." "Thank you." Willow struggled to get out of bed. "I need to handle my mother's funeral arrangements." Over the next 2 days, Willow held a memorial service for her mother. Seeing her mother lying there among the white flowers, so quiet she seemed to be just asleep, Willow knew the truth. She had no mother anymore. There was no one left to protect her. Her eyes were swollen like walnuts, unable to shed another tear. She just numbly bowed to the guests who came to pay their respects. When she straightened up, she was met with Victoria Cromwell's triumphant face, full of mockery. "Willow Ashwood, you were never destined for wealth. This is what you get for coveting Julian. That housekeeper mother of yours just took the fall for you. A housekeeper's daughter daring to try and steal my man. Disappear from Julian's side, or the next one to die will be you. That's enough. This is not the place for you to act out." Julian stepped in to stop her, but Willow, like a cornered rabbit, lunged at Victoria, slapping her left and right. The pent-up emotion erupted in a burst of strength that left Victoria defenseless. After pulling them apart, Julian held Willow tightly in his arms, his eyes fierce. "I'm sorry about the engagement. If you have any resentment, take it out on me. If I ever find you bothering Willow again, I will make you regret ever crossing someone you shouldn't have." At his words, Victoria swayed, a flash of pain in her eyes. After all these years, why is it still only Willow Ashwood in your heart? Even though her mother killed your father, you still can't bear to let me trample on her, can you? Yes, because she's worth it. That autumn took Willow's mother, and from then on, her life seemed to press pause. She spent most of her days with the curtains drawn, shut in a dark room, sometimes for an entire day. Scenes with her mother flashed before her eyes like a movie. They had argued, but mostly, they had relied on each other. She had always thought there was a long life ahead, plenty of time to spend with her mother. But life had played a cruel joke on her. Now she finally understood the saying, the tree wishes for stillness, but the wind never ceases. The child wishes to care for their parents, but they are no longer there. Deep self-blame, like a creeping vine, entangled Willow, trapping her in its grip. Slowly, she lost interest in everything. Even the meals Julian brought to her room were left untouched. Julian was frantic with worry. He remembered how he used to knock over her food, watching her clean up the mess. Now, all he felt for her was heartache. For the 6 years he had tormented her, he was the one who needed to atone. As the days passed, Willow's symptoms worsened. She began to sit on her bed all day, staring out the window. Julian would sit silently on the floor, keeping watch. To keep her from being trapped in her own world, he had the stuffed rabbit and the treasured little wooden house sent over. He talked to her tirelessly every day, telling her about interesting things happening outside, trying every which way to make her happy, never discouraged even when he got no response. At night, he would make a pallet on the floor by her bed. He would not leave her alone. Gradually, Willow began to allow sunlight into the room. Her body, once skin and bones, started to fill out. Then one day, for reasons unknown, Willow suddenly spoke. "I want to go out and get some sun." Such a simple sentence brought tears to Julian's eyes. He scrambled to help her up and out the door. The gloomy atmosphere in the house finally lifted. Now, Willow's favorite thing was to sit under the eaves, her feet bathed in sunlight, watching Julian and Ethan Hale bicker. "Move over there, you're splashing me. Who told you to get in the way? I can do it myself." "You call this can do it? Why don't we let Wills be the judge?" With a common goal, the two men's relationship had eased considerably, especially when it came to Willow, where they always reached a consensus. In this cheerful atmosphere, Willow gradually emerged from her haze of grief. But she also noticed something was off about herself. She would blush and feel a flutter of joy when she received a surprise little gift from Julian, and she would carefully place it in her room after thanking him. She would find herself unable to concentrate when she saw the droplets of water on the tips of his hair after a shower, her mind wandering. She would quickly pull away after an accidental touch, rushing into her room, her heart pounding in her ears. Willow felt that, unconsciously, she had fallen in love with Julian all over again. So when she learned that Julian was leaving the next day, she was so upset she shut herself in her room. She was afraid she would never see him again. Julian saw the young woman's emotions clearly. That evening, he brought in her dinner. In the warm light, Willow's eyes were downcast, her long eyelashes casting a shadow. Julian suddenly found it adorable and gently pinched her nose. "You didn't think I was going back and never coming back, did you?" Willow shot him an annoyed look and turned her head away. Julian felt he had lost this round. He gently stroked her head. "Although Victoria and I didn't get engaged, our families had an agreement. I have to give the Cromwells an explanation, and I don't want people gossiping about you. Do you understand?" Seeing the young woman finally nod, Julian suddenly smiled. "Wait for me to come back." She had heard those words countless times as a child, but now they sounded different to Willow. As they smiled at each other, she felt that even tonight's overly salty turnip soup was sweet. Some things didn't need to be said out loud. Both of them knew. This 9-year-long unrequited love could finally have a happy ending. Julian knew that breaking off this engagement would inevitably require him to sacrifice something. To show his sincerity, he brought a host of gifts to the Cromwells' home to apologize, but he wasn't even allowed through the front door. Only Victoria snuck out the back to see him. "Julian, are you here to apologize to my mom and dad?" Seeing the hope in Victoria's eyes, he crushed it. "Yes, I'm here to dissolve the engagement, even though we didn't have the ceremony, but..." Victoria angrily cut him off, covering her ears. "I don't want to hear it. The only outcome I'll accept is us getting married. There are no other possibilities." Thinking of Willow far away, Julian suppressed his anger and tried to reason with her. Listen to me, for the business partnership between our families, I can persuade my mom to have the Sterlings make some concessions, as long as you agree to break off the engagement. Julian, give up. I will never agree to break off the engagement, Victoria said, tears welling in her eyes. I was the one who met you first. I was the one who fell in love with you first, but you just had to fall for that tramp, Willow Ashwood. Their argument was so loud that Victoria's parents heard and rushed out to pull their daughter back, throwing Julian and his gifts out with him. If it weren't for my daughter liking you, our family wouldn't be disrespected by the likes of you. The two families parted on terrible terms. Julian staggered to his feet and threw all the scattered gifts into the trash. If he couldn't break it off once, he would try again. He would not disappoint Willow again. Realizing he couldn't make decisions for the Sterling family, he had no choice but to go home and beg his mother to relent. It was already night when Julian returned home. Since he had gone to college, the house was only occupied by his mother and the housekeepers. It was cold and empty. He paced back and forth outside his mother's study, rehearsing what to say. Just as he was about to knock, he heard his mother's furious voice. "I'm warning you, Julian Sterling is my biological son. Don't think you can blackmail the Sterling family with some random paternity test. Don't talk nonsense. How could Willow Ashwood possibly be my daughter? I only have one son, and his name is Julian Sterling. What good would it do me to ruin the Cromwells? If I hadn't pushed for this partnership, who knows where your family would be now, begging on the streets. Of course, in my heart, I want Vicky as my daughter-in-law, but Julian has always been strong-willed. We'll have to discuss the marriage at length." His mother's words were like a thunderclap in Julian's mind. His brain stopped functioning. So, Willow was the true heiress of the Sterling family, and he was the Ashwood's child. The series of blows left him reeling. He had, without knowing, stolen more than 20 years of Willow's life. How could he ever face her now? By the time he realized he should flee this place, the door had been pulled open. Seeing the sudden appearance of Julian, his mother, Eleanor, was also stunned. "Son, what are you doing here? You must be hungry. I'll have someone make you dinner." Julian came to his senses and interrupted her. "Mom, Willow is your biological daughter, isn't she?" She laughed awkwardly. "What are you talking about? You're my only son." "I heard everything." Seeing that there was no way to hide it any longer, she called Julian into the room, closed the door, and with a bitter smile began to recount the difficult days of the past. The secret she had buried in her heart for over 20 years. It turned out that Willow's parents, Martha and the late Mr. Ashwood, had met and fallen in love while working for the Sterling family. The two couples were very close. Coincidentally, Martha Ashwood and Eleanor Sterling became pregnant at the same time. Back then, Richard Sterling, desperate for a male heir, had taken many lovers, proclaiming that whoever gave birth to a son first would be welcomed into the Sterling family. To secure her position, Eleanor had to be the first to have a boy, but fate was cruel. She gave birth to a girl, while Martha gave birth to a boy. The immense pressure was suffocating. That night, she knelt on the floor and begged the Ashwoods to swap the babies. After finally revealing the secret she had kept for over 20 years, Eleanor sighed. "I thought this secret would go to the grave with me. But somehow, the Cromwells found out and are using it to blackmail me, forcing you to marry Victoria. Now that you know everything, you understand the choice you have to make. Just consider it fate that you and Willow were never meant to be." Julian remained noncommittal, leaning his head back on the sofa, his eyes shimmering with tears. Everything now made sense. No wonder his mother had been so affectionate with Willow from the moment she saw her, holding her and doting on her. No wonder after his father's death, even after throwing Martha out, she had insisted on keeping Willow by her side. It wasn't out of pity, nor was it because she wanted her as a daughter-in-law. It was because Willow was her biological daughter. The image of the paternity test from the video flashed in his mind. Julian turned to her. "Mom, did Dad's sudden heart attack happen because he discovered this secret?" After a long silence, she spoke in a hoarse, barely audible voice. "Yes." Hearing his mother's confirmation, Julian felt his head was about to explode. It was his mother who had told him that his father's sudden death was because he hadn't received timely medical attention, her words all pointing to Martha Ashwood. That was why he had hated Willow for so many years. Now he realized he had been a pawn since birth. He scoffed at himself. After being manipulated by you for half my life, I'd rather give up the sterling fortune than remain a pawn in your hands. Julian's attitude angered her. The sterling business has been losing money for the past 2 years. Without the Cromwells' help, it would have already gone under. Now, all I'm asking is for you to marry a woman you don't love. Consider it a way to protect your father's life's work, to repay him for raising you. If the rest of the Sterling family finds out about your true identity, not only will your shares be swallowed up, but our lives, mother and son, will be in danger. I cannot let you be reckless in this matter. The marriage with the Cromwells is not up for negotiation. Watching his mother's furious departure, Julian felt an increasing sense of alienation. After all those years together, he had thought there was still some familial love between them. But in the face of family interests, she would still abandon him without hesitation. Julian sank into the sofa, letting the cigarette in his hand burn down, the ash falling onto his skin unnoticed. His phone buzzed with a message from Willow. Did everything go smoothly today? He didn't know how to reply. He stared at the bright moon outside the window, a thought solidifying in his mind. Having not heard from Julian last night, Willow appeared before Ethan Hale with huge dark circles under her eyes, startling him. "Wills, did you go robbing banks last night?" Willow rubbed her tired eyes. "I just didn't sleep well. What did you want to see me about?" He became unusually serious. "My dad is sending me abroad for work. I came to say goodbye and to ask if you want to come with me." Since she had finally acknowledged her true feelings, Willow decided it was time to be clear with him. "Ethan Hale, have a safe trip. I wish you all the happiness in the world." Hearing Willow's answer, Ethan smiled in relief. "I just felt I would regret it if I didn't ask. Now I can finally let go." As the atmosphere grew tense, Ethan covered his embarrassment with a loud laugh. "Wills, let's go for a walk around our old school as a farewell gift." "Okay." Stepping back onto campus, Willow noticed a few new academic buildings. The once dreaded teacher's office had been moved, and the old basketball court had been renovated. "Wills, do you remember the days we used to run together?" Following Ethan's finger, the image that appeared in Willow's mind was of Julian. Back then, the other students would say she had an air of poverty, and no one wanted to be her partner in gym class. It was Julian who had volunteered to be her partner, and for that day, she didn't have to endure those humiliating jeers. Thinking back, maybe it was just a way for teenagers to assert their superiority. She was just unlucky to be chosen, but now she had long since let it go. A breeze blew and Willow's hair fluttered. Ethan seemed lost in thought for a moment, then cleared his throat. "Wills, remember how you were always being punished by having to stand in the hallway?" "I remember." Back then, a classmate would deliberately tear up her homework, causing her to be punished by the teacher. She wouldn't dare move without permission. It was Julian who had flicked her on the head. "Punishment's over. Protect your homework better next time." After that day, no one ever tore her homework again. Later, when she was falsely accused of stealing class funds, and even the teacher seemed suspicious, she couldn't hold back her tears. It was Julian who gently wiped them away and stood at the front of the class to announce, "The classmate who, accidentally, took the class funds, please return them before the end of the school day. Otherwise, we'll call the police. And I don't care what kind of background you have." And so, before school let out, the missing funds reappeared on the class president's desk. At that moment, Willow's longing for Julian reached its peak. She suddenly had an overwhelming urge to fly to his side. As if reading her mind, Ethan teased, "Don't worry. Julian wouldn't dare to stay away from you for too long now." Willow quickly looked down, feeling the heat on her face. Ethan suddenly looked at her intently. "Wills, my farewell gift to you is my sincerest blessing. I have a lot of bad memories at this school, but I'm so glad I had you to get me through those tough times. Now I only wish you a life of peace, health, and joy." Seeing the boy's eyes redden, Willow was also moved. Ethan, besides Julian, was her only friend during that entire high school period. But Willow wouldn't use the excuse of friendship to stop him from soaring to greater heights. "Goodbye, my friend." After saying goodbye to Ethan, Willow returned home to find Victoria Cromwell at her door, personally delivering an invitation. "You have to come to my and Julian's wedding." Willow stared at the red invitation in her hand, her fingertips trembling uncontrollably. Victoria saw her devastated state and let out a soft laugh before speaking languidly. "I warned you, but you just wouldn't listen. In families like ours, we don't let women like you in. All these years have passed, and you're still as dumb as a post. Willow took the invitation. The red card clearly printed, groom, Julian Sterling, bride, Victoria Cromwell, will be married on. Tears blurred her vision. She repeatedly checked the groom's name, but even as the gold foil smudged her fingers, the black ink remained unchanged. Victoria, like a proud princess, unabashedly savored Willow's misery. She sneered, "I have Julian to thank for insisting you come to our wedding. Otherwise, I wouldn't get to see this pathetic look on your face. Honestly, it's quite satisfying." With that, she didn't linger. She quickly got into a black car and disappeared down the alley. Her heart felt as if it had been brutally carved out. Panic and grief churned within her, and she felt she could hardly breathe. Tears streamed down her face. She slid down the wall and sat on the ground. Was she being abandoned again? But he had told her to wait for him to come back. Something must have gone wrong. She had to trust him. Willow repeatedly dialed the familiar number, only to be met with a cold, mechanical voice. "The number you have dialed is switched off. Please try again later." Her last sliver of hope was extinguished. Willow hugged her knees and curled up in a corner, sobbing uncontrollably. Her father, her mother, Ethan, and now Julian, they were all gone. She was truly all alone. She didn't know how long she cried. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a message from Julian. "Willow, you have to come to the wedding," but when Willow tried to call back, the phone was off again. A bad feeling crept into her heart. "Julian, you have to be okay." She barely made it to the day of the wedding ceremony. Willow arrived at the hotel early, but after searching everywhere, she couldn't find Julian. Instead, she unfortunately ran into Victoria and her friends taking pictures in the hallway. Well, look who it is. The famous bootlicker, Willow Ashwood. What, still not giving up? Here to crash the wedding? Our Vicky and Julian are a match made in heaven. Not just any riffraff can get in between them. After a round of low laughter, Victoria stepped forward, pretending to smooth things over. "Oh, you guys, don't be like that. Today is my and Julian's big day. All who come are guests." She looked at Willow. "I'm so happy you could come to witness our happiness today, but don't you even think about causing any trouble." Her cute tone was laced with threats. Willow had had enough. She spoke calmly. "I was invited by Julian Sterling to attend this wedding. You don't need to be so hypocritical." With that, Willow ignored her expression and found a seat, waiting for the wedding to begin. After a long wait, Julian finally appeared on stage. He anxiously scanned the crowd, and the moment his eyes met Willow's, a smile bloomed on his face. This only confirmed Willow's suspicions. The wedding proceeded smoothly. Victoria stood beside Julian, occasionally shooting provocative glances at Willow, which she ignored. But an unexpected turn of events occurred during the vows. Do you take this man to be your husband, to be loyal to him, to respect him, and never to deceive him until death do you part? As soon as the officiant finished, Victoria looked at the handsome Julian before her, tears streaming down her face, and shouted, "I do." The next second, Julian snatched the microphone and demanded, "Victoria Cromwell, have you really never deceived me?" The venue erupted in an uproar. It was the first time anyone had seen a groom publicly humiliate his bride. Victoria rushed forward and frantically grabbed his arm. "Julian, stop fooling around. Whatever it is, we can talk about it when we get back." But Julian didn't agree. He took a step back, shook off her hand, and snarled, "I gave you a chance. Back then, you were the one who had him corner me in the alley, so you could swoop in and play the hero, weren't you?" At his words, the large screen that had been displaying their wedding photos suddenly went black. A recording began to play. "Hello, I'd like to discuss a business proposition with you. $1 million, not a cent less. Deal. I'll give you $2 million. I want Willow Ashwood and her sickly mother dead." What followed was restored surveillance footage from the hospital. Willow's mother's oxygen tube had been removed while she was sleeping, causing her to go into cardiac arrest. The evidence was like a bolt from the blue, making Willow's head spin. She had to grip the table to keep herself steady. So her mother wasn't supposed to die so soon. It was all her fault. In a daze, Willow's eyes could only see Victoria on the stage, covering her ears and backing away, screaming, "That's not what happened, I didn't do it." But Willow had already lost all reason. She rushed forward and slapped Victoria hard across the face. "You tramp, how dare you hit me?" Before she could react, Julian pulled Willow into a tight embrace. A warm, red stream trickled down her neck. She choked out, "Julian, what's wrong? Don't scare me." As Julian's body slid to the ground, Willow saw Victoria behind him, trembling, holding half a broken bottle. The bottle that had been aimed at her face had been blocked by Julian. Blood stained more than half of his face. After injuring him, Victoria panicked and tried to flee, only to run into the police who had just arrived. She was arrested on the spot. The show was over. Willow fumbled for her phone to call an ambulance, but Julian picked up the microphone, propped himself up, and walked to the center of the stage. "Please, everyone, stay for a moment. I have one more thing to announce. The truth is, I am not the biological child of the Sterling family. Willow Ashwood is." He looked at Willow with half-lidded eyes. "Willow, what I owed you, I have now paid back." The moment the microphone fell, Julian could no longer hold on and collapsed heavily onto the floor. Seeing Julian lying there, bleeding, Alina Sterling couldn't take the shock and fainted. The scene descended into chaos. The grand wedding had become a farce. While waiting outside the operating room, Willow prayed to every deity she could name. Every extra prayer was an extra sliver of hope. Time ticked by. Finally, Julian was wheeled out. The doctor took off his mask and said, "The patient is out of immediate danger, but he has lost a lot of blood and needs to rest and recuperate." Okay, thank you, doctor." After he was moved to a regular room, Willow sat by his bed for a long time. Suddenly, she felt a tickle on her cheek. She looked up and heard, "Willow, I did it." The first words Julian spoke upon waking up left Willow utterly confused. She lightly tapped his chest. "You scared me to death. What on earth happened? You have to tell me everything, from beginning to end." "Okay, I'll tell you slowly." It turned out Julian had always been suspicious about Martha Ashwood's death. When he went to the hospital to check the surveillance footage, he was told the hard drive data had been overwritten, and it would take a significant amount of time to recover. Not only that, he also noticed a person, always wearing a hat and a mask, constantly lurking around Willow. Following this lead, he discovered the man was connected to Victoria Cromwell. Before returning home, Julian had arranged for someone to protect Willow, but he never expected to be placed under house arrest in his own room by his mother. That's why he had no choice but to have Victoria go to Willow herself. After recounting his experiences, Julian looked at Willow with pride. "Willow, do you remember our first argument? I kept my promise to you." The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the boy's chiseled face. Every strand of his hair seemed to glow. Willow was mesmerized. Snapping back to reality, she quickly nodded. "Of course, I remember." That was the first time Julian had driven Victoria away for her. He had asked her why she was so timid, and she had taken all her anger out on him. "Why did you have to meddle? I had endured it for so long. Now that you've stepped in, they'll just be worse. I don't want my mom to worry." Julian had been shaking with anger, but he had gripped her shoulders firmly and told her, "You can't choose where you're born, but you can choose how you live. Willow, I will always have your back." But this time, Julian wasn't standing behind her. He was standing in front of her, shielding her from the storm. Willow squeezed his hand tightly. "The night before my mom passed away, I saw you kneeling on the floor, begging for her forgiveness. You probably don't know this, but she was already awake then. After you left, she told me she never blamed you. In fact, all these years, she blamed herself for not being able to save Mr. Sterling." Julian lowered his head, not speaking, but the slight tremor in his shoulders betrayed him. After a long while, he choked out, "I let Mrs. Ashwood down. I was so awful to her before." The more he spoke, the more ashamed he felt. He covered his face with his hands and wept. Willow sat quietly by his side. He had suppressed his emotions for so long, it was time for a proper release. After he calmed down, Willow leaned close to his ear. The scent of disinfectant and the boy's unique fragrance filled her nose. "I've never been a very lucky person. I used to resent it, but now I understand that I used up all my luck to meet you. From now on, good or bad, don't hide anything from me. I want to share it all with you." Just as she was about to pull away, Julian wrapped an arm around her, saying earnestly, "If the sky falls, I'll hold it up. All I want is for you to be safe and happy." Willow's cold heart warmed once again. 9 years. She had finally found her savior again. During Alina Sterling's hospitalization, Willow took on the responsibility of caring for her. Not because she was her biological mother, but because she had, after all, raised Julian for over 20 years. She couldn't abandon her at a time like this. To make it easier to care for her, Willow rented a 2-bedroom apartment in the city. Julian, having lost his sterling family shares due to the revelation of his true identity, was not discouraged. He worked hard every day to run his small company. To be able to live a simple, quiet life like this was already enough for Willow. She shuttled between 2 places every day, busy but fulfilled. One day, after helping Alina wash up, she received a call from Julian. "Willow, the evidence for Victoria's contract killing is conclusive. She's been sentenced. No one can hurt you anymore." It should have been gratifying news, but Willow's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't help but worry. "Julian, you still need to be careful. I'm afraid the Cromwell family will hold this against you." Julian dismissed her concerns. "Don't worry about it. They're too busy cleaning up Victoria's mess to bother with me. I have to go, I'm driving. I'll bring you something good to eat later." After hanging up, Willow tried to convince herself she was just being paranoid. Just then, a nurse came in to take Alina for a checkup. With some effort, Willow helped her into a wheelchair and pushed her out. There was a long line for the checkup today. By the time Willow returned to the room, Julian still hadn't arrived. A sense of unease crept back into her heart. She called him, but a woman's voice answered. "Hello, this is City Hospital. The patient was in a serious car accident and was unconscious when he arrived." The phone slipped from her hand. Willow's ears were ringing, and her body started to tremble. On pure instinct, she stumbled towards the emergency room. In just one short month, Willow had experienced the agony of waiting outside the ER twice. She clasped her hands together, begging the heavens to show her mercy just one more time. But this time, the doctor's face was full of regret. "The patient is temporarily out of danger, but he has severe brain damage. Whether he wakes up is up to fate." Willow staggered back a few steps and finally collapsed onto the floor. Sadness, panic, injustice, a whirlwind of emotions threatened to swallow her whole. Fate truly loved to play tricks on her. She had just found Julian again, just a step away from happiness. A profound bitterness filled her heart. All the pent-up grievances erupted in that moment, and she let herself cry her heart out. She didn't know how long she cried. All she felt was a complete lack of strength. She wiped away her tears and silently comforted herself. At least she had experienced happiness for a while. Now, she was just returning what wasn't hers. She should accept it calmly. After all, she was never a very lucky person. Perhaps even the heavens felt Willow had suffered too much and finally decided to grant her a little sweetness. Just as she had prepared herself to take care of both mother and son, Alina Sterling woke up. She looked at Willow, who had become almost skeletal, and stroked her calloused hands, weeping. "Willow, it was wrong of me to be so greedy and secretly swap you. It made you suffer for so many years. If I hadn't swapped the children, the Cromwells wouldn't have had anything to blackmail me with, and Julian wouldn't have made such a choice. It's all my fault, all my fault. Can you forgive me, please?" An indescribable emotion welled up inside Willow. Thinking of the life her parents had lived, she still couldn't bring herself to forgive her. Realizing her own emotional state, Alina quickly wiped her tears and changed the subject. "By the way, where's Julian? Is he okay?" "He's fine. After losing his shares, he's been completely focused on his small company. He's been incredibly busy lately." Considering Alina's health, Willow chose to hide the news of Julian's severe injuries and coma. After her checkup, Alina was soon discharged. To keep the secret, Willow had her move into her rented apartment. The first time she brought Alina home, Willow was a bit embarrassed. "Mom, my budget is limited, so my apartment is small. Please bear with me." To her surprise, Alina showed no disgust. Instead, she smiled and commented, "This place has great light, perfect for a patient like me to recuperate. And the ventilation is good." Alina's demeanor reminded Willow of her own mother, who, despite her calloused hands, had always tried to give her the best of everything. Her eyes stung. Willow turned and ran to the kitchen, pouring the soup she had been simmering into a thermos. "You go ahead and unpack. I have something to take care of." With that, she fled the apartment and rushed to the hospital. She kept up this double life, running between 2 places for a whole month. Julian didn't know that during his coma, his company had started to thrive, because Ethan Hale had stepped in. After the car accident, Willow went to the investigating officer, providing a new direction for the case. As the investigation into a simple traffic accident deepened, it unearthed a number of old, unsolved cases. The masterminds behind it all were finally revealed: Victoria's parents. When they were arrested, they glared at Willow, roaring, "I regret not having Julian killed in that crash. He betrayed my daughter. He deserved to die in court," they tearfully accused Julian. "If he hadn't toyed with my daughter's emotions, if he hadn't driven her to desperation and forced her to hire a killer, would we, two old people, have stooped to feuding with a junior? We are all parents here. Your Honor, please have pity on these parents who love their child so dearly. But the law is equal for all. Pleading for pity would not earn them sympathy." Soon, the verdict came down. Victoria's parents were both sentenced to prison. The investigating officer even called Willow specially. "Thank you for the information you provided. How is Mr. Sterling now?" Willow shook her head. "Not good. The doctor said it's brain damage. We don't know when he'll wake up." She wiped away a tear and forced a bright smile. "But I believe he will wake up one day, because I'm still waiting for him to marry me." A muffled groan came from behind her. Willow turned to see Alina, who had appeared behind her at some point, faint upon hearing the news about Julian. A heavy rain was falling outside. The trees along the street swayed violently in the wind. Watching Alina being loaded into the ambulance, Willow felt a deep sense of panic. Willow stood in front of the emergency room, watching the doctors wheel Alina away until she disappeared from sight. The doors closed in her face once again. Willow couldn't quite describe what she was feeling. Panic, anxiety. But mostly it was numbness. Her eyes felt sore, but no tears came. She just felt utterly drained. Fortunately, Alina's condition was not serious. Willow stayed by her bedside, not daring to leave, afraid she would do something foolish upon waking. She kept rehearsing what to say, trying to soften the blow. Finally, Alina showed signs of waking. Her hand twitched, and then her eyes slowly opened. "Mom, you're awake. I didn't mean to hide it from you." "No need to explain." She raised a hand to stop her. "I understand. Willow, you're a good child. You've worked so hard taking care of me and Julian." Willow's eyes welled up. She quickly shook her head. "It's not hard. I'm doing it willingly. You should rest. From now on, I'll help you take care of Julian." Hearing that her mother had come to terms with it, Willow smiled through her tears. It seemed life was finally starting to get better. 3 years passed in a flash. Once Julian's condition stabilized, Willow brought him home to recuperate. Every single day for those 3 years, Willow would sit by his bed after coming home, embellishing stories about her day, imagining that one day he would suddenly laugh along with her. One day, Ethan helped Julian's company secure a huge investment. Willow rushed home to share the good news. "Julian, you always used to say this house doesn't support freeloaders. But now, not only are you lying around, you're winning while you're at it." "It's so infuriating," Willow huffed as she massaged his leg. Suddenly, she heard a soft laugh beside her ear. It sounded just like the laugh she had imagined countless times. She couldn't believe her ears. The moment she turned her head, she saw the corner of Julian's mouth quirked up. An immense joy flooded her heart. Willow had thought that when Julian finally woke up, she would burst into tears. But she just cried silently as she stroked his pale face over and over. "So you finally decided to wake up, huh? Do you have any idea?" "I'm sorry." Having not spoken for so long, Julian's voice was incredibly hoarse. But to Willow, it was the most beautiful sound in the world. The grievances that had built up for years dissipated. The longing and love she had accumulated had yet to be spoken, but they overflowed from her eyes. A playful thought occurred to Willow. She asked, "Sorry to whom?" The tips of Julian's ears turned red. His warm palm cupped her face. "My girlfriend." He looked straight at Willow, his long eyelashes casting a halo of light. His sharp nose drew closer, and she could feel the warmth of his breath on her ear. "Willow, for years and years to come, let's never be apart."